Hi, friends. Welcome to the Mother of One podcast. This is actually my first time doing an interview on the podcast, which means it is episode 2. And I am very excited to have one of my very best friends on the entire planet here today, Elissa, to chat with you. And not the classic Elissa spelling, it's Elissa, which is so wild because my sister's name is Elissa and my best friend's name is Elissa, and that's the best way to differentiate it. But you know, when I was thinking about doing interviews on this podcast, my mind kind of just like went murk. It was kind of like one of those things where I didn't want it to be super buttoned up. I wanted it to be very casual. And so when I started to dig a little bit deeper into the idea of bring people on the podcast with me, I really had this like hope that it would become less about being an interview and more so the listener being able to feel like they're just kind of like, you guys are just kind of like overhearing a conversation that we're having through FaceTime or something like that. And I thought the best way to do that, to kick that off, was with actually one of my best friends on the planet, who is in a pretty unique situation herself. She's both an only child and has an only child by choice. And so this might be the first time, Elsa, we've actually had like an in-depth conversation about this.
Oh, it definitely is.
Because we're like both super like jokester and we text constantly, but we're always like we're planning our New York City trip right now and this and outfits and food. Like we're huge foodies and we're always sending things back and forth. But when you came up and visited and met Carson for the first time, I remember kind of like dropping hints and asking a lot of questions about like your only child life, and you really helped become a big influence to both, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but became such a huge influence to both myself, but also Tyler. Tyler's really great friends with Elissa as well, which has been such a fun, relationship to see flourish. But I thought it was maybe really neat to bring you on the podcast and just kind of chat as best friends, in very parallel situations, but Alyssa's kind of one step ahead, and she has that advantage to talk a little bit about being an only child herself. So in an effort to just not be artificial on this podcast, I just thought it'd be really fun to bring on my best friend. Oh, please now, do this just for me. I don't know so much. Give me love, give me love, give me love, baby. So, Elissa, let's kick this off. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, not only like your backstory a little bit, but also just kind of like as an only child growing up and then your decision to be an only child mama.
Okay. So my name's Elissa. I am 32. I'm an only child, obviously, but I grew up in a military family. So my dad was military. So we moved around quite a bit, like every 3 to 4 years, we were constantly moving around. And moving around was a little bit harder whenever I was a sibling just because I was the only one and I had to like make new friends everywhere I went. So I didn't have that like sibling to like bond with over like, oh, we're moving again. Like I already have like a kind of built-in best friend kind of thing. And I kind of like always wanted one growing up, but I do feel like being an only child kind of pushed me to be a little more outgoing and like kind of make friends easier,
Right.
maybe just because I had to, because I didn't really have the sibling to like rely on to like hang out with them. So as a child, I definitely wanted a sibling. And then as I got older, especially when I was like a teenager, when I was like 16, like my parents got me a car, like a brand new car, because they could, because I was the only child.
Right.
Had my college paid for because my parents had it set aside for me, didn't have to split it with anyone. So definitely as I got older, I kind of appreciated the only child more so than when I was younger. And I also never felt like I was necessarily like in a lack of like attention from my parents because it was always on me. And I think that kind of is what pushed me to think that I probably only wanted one kid. I always wanted for sure one, but 2 was my max. Like I had to have one just because like I felt like I couldn't go through life without having at least one kid just to have. And I just feel like it's life-changing whenever you do have a kid. But I was always like, okay, 2's max. I can't do more than 2 kind of thing. But yeah. So I don't think yeah, well, and I also don't feel like it's ever truly solidified. Like I don't think there's ever like a light switch that like clicks and you're like, oh, this is definitely what's gonna happen. I feel like you always kind of like teeter back and forth on like, did I make the right choice? Like, should I have another one? I feel like that's always kind of playing in the back of your head, especially with like most people have more than one. And I feel like right after you have one, I'm like, so when's the next one? And you're like, I just popped one out. What are you
Right.
talking about?
That pressure, man.
Yeah. So plus I'm like, I wasn't huge with like, I didn't really care to be pregnant. I mean, it wasn't awful, but not my jam. Some people love it. I ain't one of them. And I feel like just growing up, I'm kind of, I don't just like a selfish person where like, I like my time. I like to have time to myself. And then having my son Alex, like, I'm like, I want to put all my other time into him. Right. And only him. And I don't really want to share it. And also one of the things I always thought about, he was really good as a baby. And I was like, oh my God, if I have another one, they're going to be a terror. Like, I just feel like there's always like the balance of like, well, you have a good one now, and the next
Right.
one's going to be crazy. So, who knows?
It's so funny because, you know, hearing your story, we are so similar in so many areas, but our experiences were very different. Like, I came from a massive family. I just thought I wanted a huge family. You came from a small family. You were kind of like, you're like Ty in the sense of like, let's just have one first and see if we like it and then go from there type thing. And Alex was a super easy baby where Carson was a really hard baby. So I have the same mindset as you. Like, you're saying things like, what if the next one is hard? I'm saying things like, I could not handle another Carson. And he's the best now that he's mobile. I love toddler life. And it's so funny because newborn, I feel like some people love newborn life and hate toddler life. I'm the opposite. I never want to go back to newborn.
That was one of my like, I don't know if I can do newborn again. They're so cute and so, but like, it's a lot. I mean, that is mentally draining. Like, this life depends on you for everything right now.
Yeah. And I love what you said about, you know, you love your time. And I think it's so important for us to point out, and I said this in my intro video, everyone is different. Some people want every extra minute of their time devoted to millions of babies running around. And like I said when we started this podcast, I'm not saying that our way is the right way and somebody else's way is the wrong way. We're just creating a safe space for moms of one, period. And I know that it's moms of one who are listening to this, and we are selfish with the fact that, you know, you're very focused on your career. Alyssa's an ER nurse. I'm very focused on my career. So the time that we do have, we want it to be spent with every single moment. We want to be special with our one existing baby, not this need to like split it 5 different ways. And that's okay. Like you said, societal standards, it's like, when's the next one? It's okay to just want to put your energy in one area. And something else I wanted to point out, and we're gonna pass it back over to Elissa, just because I know her personally, a really special thing about her, and this is actually really special about, I mean, I'm blessed with 2 best friends who are both only children and have only one child. But something about Elissa, and I was telling one of my business partners this the other day, I've met people over the course of my adult lifetime. Elissa wasn't like a childhood friend or even high school or college friend. Elissa and I met on Instagram 4 years ago now.
That sounds about right.
Just about 4 years ago. And we became best friends instantly. But here's why. Elissa is never one of those people to just be like, I want to be your friend. We should plan something. Alyssa's like, I want to be your friend. I want to book a flight to Charleston. I want to book a flight to Baltimore. We're going to follow through. We're going to meet up. We're going to book that Airbnb and we're going to be friends and we're going to go get coffee. You have the follow through that so few people have. And I think you have it because you had to have it through life. Oh, you think?
Oh yeah, definitely.
But you said just as an independent.
Yeah. I also have like pretty bad FOMO. So, you know, just the experiences alone. And I think that's actually the trip thing is actually another reason why that pushes me more so to just be like just the one kid, because I'm like, I want Alex to be able to experience what I got to. Like, I lived in Europe for a little bit. Like, I don't think I'll ever live there again, but I would love to like take him there. And it's like, 1, it's expensive. 2, it's like he's at an age now, like where he would somewhat appreciate, like, I just couldn't do that if I like threw in another kid in the mix. Right. It would just be like we would have to wait longer, or it'd be more expensive. And I'm like, I want him to have all those experiences too. Yeah. And as much as possible.
Yeah. And money aside, it's like the time of now starting over, or this kid's in soccer, this kid's in cheerleading, this, that, and other. You are building, your job is to raise this human being, and he has the ability to do his interests. And then in both of your off time, you have the ability to mold him into the creature he's becoming. And I think that is so special to have that one-on-one relationship with your child that you wouldn't get otherwise. Again, it's not wrong to have more children, but I think it is so special in that one, single child household. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but if you want to kind of like dig a little bit deeper in it, in our society, it could feel really taboo to have one baby. I know you said that you felt that pressure pretty early on. But do you feel like there was a certain point in your like new mama life that like solidified, okay, I think I'm good with just my one baby?
I think it was more of, well, one, going through like the newborn phase and being like, oh my God, to do that again. And then like seeing other moms, like you just had Carson, and it's like, girl, I remember, and Carson was a little bit more difficult. And it's like, I don't think I want to do that again. And it also like with your partner too, it just puts that strain. And if you aren't already like very solidified, having that good foundation with your spouse, like it's not always a good idea to add another kid into the mix or anything like that. So I just think like timing, I feel like it's everything, but it just kind of solidified like also just having Alex just to myself.
Just
That's
felt
another thing. Like I don't want to share. It's like I don't want to share my time with anyone else. And it's like not that I wouldn't like, of course, love my baby. Like it's just gonna be different because it's I don't know.
I think that's so important to point out, though. Like, from the other side, like, sure, Alex would have to share you, but you don't want to share Alex. Like, he's your baby. Share it. And I think that is so special. And what's really neat, too, and I was just thinking about this because Elissa is an only child. You have a relationship with your parents that I have never had with my parents. And because you're the only child, they have a relationship with Alex that my parents will never ever have with Carson, unfortunately, just because they, because we had such a massive family, they don't have time to spend it with Carson. My mom, unfortunately, Carson's one, and my mom's only met my baby 4 times, and not because of lack of love, but truly because of lack of time and responsibility. So how is that like? Can you talk about that a little bit? How that's really had an effect on your motherhood?
Oh yeah. Well, I will say this. My mom says being a grandma is way more fun than being a mom. She's like, it's literally the best. She's like, I get to spend time with him. She does crafts with him. And then she gets to give him back whenever especially when he was a baby. But no, they love it. They actually watch him whenever I'm working or I do a shift, or he'll like stay the night and then I'll like take him to school in the morning or something like that. But they want as much time with him as possible, and he's still applying right now. He's 4, and he just has this big personality, and he wants to do all these things, and it's just so much fun. So yeah, they like soak it up, and he's the only one they got, so they're giving it all to him. But I'm sure my parents wanted me to probably have more than just one, but I think they're good.
I think it's so special. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's our choice, period. But I think that's so special. I love that, so we get to hand them back. And I don't know. I also feel like it truly takes a village to raise a child. And I'm not saying that my situation was harder than yours in any way, or it was just different in the sense that you are an only child. You lived, well, you didn't, your mom moved down with you because she could, because you were her only child to live. How long did she stay with you? For like a month or 2?
When I first had Alex as a newborn, she stayed like 3 months.
Oh, God.
It was the biggest blessing. And I didn't even like necessarily like tell her like, oh, will you stay that? Because I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, you can prep all you want for babies, but newborn stage is gonna hit you
Yeah.
hard,
Yeah.
no matter what. So she was such a blessing because so much help. Because I obviously like have not been around babies a lot. I even growing up, I think this is actually another point. I knew I couldn't have like I didn't want a bunch of kids because all growing up, like I never wanted to like babysit other people's kids. Like I'll see kids and be like, okay, like they're cute, but like we're having adult time or
Right.
something. So
Right.
I'm
Can
like,
you get your kid out of here? I'm trying to have a
yeah,
conversation.
yeah. I'm like, that's just my personality. So I don't know.
Well, you've raised a really great kid, and it's just kind of hilarious that I'm totally opposite. I got my
Mhm.
undergrad in elementary education. I nannied, babysat my whole life. I tutored. I was a first grade teacher. I thought I was going to have a giant family of 4, and then all of a sudden I decided I really don't want that. And like you said, you have those moments, and I want to be transparent on this call and not have it be all rainbows and butterflies and
Yeah.
say we just knew. It was just one of those things. I know in my gut that that's what I want, but there are those days where you're like, today was really easy. My kid's really cute. Like, let's do it again.
Yeah.
And then you have those really hard days where you're like, this would be impossible. I would lose my mind. Or you hear, maybe you're having a really hard day, and like one of our friends, Ty graduated with him, they're having their 3rd baby. So this could be 3 and a 3. And I
Oh, bless
literally got
them.
like, I got a little nauseous when Ty told me, like, I was like, I like had to take a deep breath, like,
You're like, I'm anxious for you.
yeah. But
Bless you.
I have to remind myself that's not my story. That's their
Yeah.
story. And they have they're just writing a different story, period.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things, and I want to make an entire episode about this. And Melissa, I'm sure you can relate to this, just being a consumer on social media.
Mm.
I saw this post the other day, and it was a woman who had 3 children, and she had a big platform. She said, unpopular opinion, I think being a stay-at-home mom is really easy. And to me, that made me feel so small.
Yeah.
Because I don't think being a stay-at-home mom is really easy.
At all.
What she really meant and how she should have worded it was, she thinks that her role as a stay-at-home mom is really easy. But we all have different circumstances, right? Like Elissa has her mom and dad down the street, which is so helpful, so nice. Me, I'm technically a work-at-home mom. You're a work out of the house mom. But we all have different circumstances that I think that social media can be a much brighter place. And that's why I created this community. It can be a much brighter place if we stop saying things like, I'm better than you, or I don't think what you think is valid, and just being like, my situation, I feel X, Y, and Z, period.
Yeah.
But the way you feel is so valid. It would just like open the door for just more vulnerability and freedom of the way that we're feeling. And I truly believe that I struggled so much postpartum because I thought it was going to be rainbows and butterflies. I thought, because I am such an achiever, a doer, I'm an optimist, I'm literally
You plan everything.
I plan everything, but
Yeah.
I'm also always in a good mood, like to some level. And then all of a sudden, hormones hit. Alyssa didn't like pregnancy. I loved pregnancy. I would do that 900 times. But the second he came out of me, everything, I questioned everything in my life. Whether I even wanted to be on this planet, which is such a scary place. So we'll talk about postpartum depression in another episode. But it's, if we could just be straightforward on socials, right? Which consumes so much of our time, but at a level of, this is the way that I feel based on my role and my experiences, it would allow for more people to just feel valid in the way that they're living their life. And that's really why I wanted to create this space and also create this episode with Elissa, because we're so different, but we live very parallel lives, that it's so nice for all of the listeners to hear that. Okay, Elissa, let's transition to this last question. So I think this is what everybody's probably most excited to hear, because everybody listening to this is a mother of one. But you're in the unique situation, because some people have as well, but you're in a unique situation where you're also an only child. So we've heard of the only child syndrome as adults, right? So what's your take on it? And do you feel like you'll do anything different for Alex than what you had in your life based on the only child adult syndrome?
I mean, I feel like, I probably have some sort of only child syndrome because I am.
Never letting me borrow your clothes.
I was just about to say, I do not share. I don't share well. I'm getting better as I get older, but I definitely don't share well. Whereas Ash is total opposite. She will take the shirt off her back. I'm like, where is this? This is so cute. I am definitely not that person. I'm getting better as I get older. So I think that is one thing I'm definitely working on with Alex. Like whenever he's with his friends and stuff, and like we have to share. Like, if you don't share your stuff, they're not gonna share like their stuff. Like we've got to and it's just things. And I think that's kind of the hardest thing to separate. Like it's just materialistic things. It doesn't matter, buddy. Like we want to like go based off of experiences. And my parents have always tried to like say like experiences, memories are like the most important. So they've always done really well with that. And that's probably why I don't have the only child syndrome as bad. One thing that I feel like will be harder to do later that might be beneficial for Alex is like pushing him to like if he goes to college to be like maybe you should go a little further away and experience that on your own. Whereas I'd be like, just go down the street so I can come and see you anytime. But I feel like I had that safety net with my parents for so long. Like they literally, my dad got stationed back in Oklahoma just so I could go to OU for nursing school. Right. Like he did that for me, even though he didn't want to be there. He didn't like being at that base. And it probably didn't really move him forward necessarily in his career, but he's like, I'm going to be where my baby girl is. So I'm going to get stationed there, live with them like part of my college time. And then they like got restationed, but I kind of always had that safety net with them. And I feel like it's kind of important to like just make you as a person to kind of be on your own and pushed away and just not have people too close to where you can be like, oh, I'll just go to my parents or something like that. So
that's so good to know.
Makes you who you are.
Yeah.
So
it's so good, important for you to point that out. Tyler and I have literally been like, well, a perk of having a Leon child is that wherever he goes to college, we could just follow him.
Dude, I mean, trust me when that's where I'm like, well, it could just absolutely. But I do think it's important to kind of like, all right, like you gotta figure some stuff out on your own. But
I love that. I'm excited. Thank you for sharing that. And two, you put Alex in not childcare, but preschool really early, right?
Yes. So he did, which I feel like once you find like an amazing school, like, and that's the other thing, it's never too early to look for schools because it's insane right now. And he does go to like a private school. So that is kind of the other thing we decided just because the ones in our location were just so overcrowded. But they had a pre-K for 2s, 3s, and he's currently in the 4s right now. And then next year he'll do kindergarten, which is insane. Yeah.
But next year we're gonna be taking kindergarten photos and like having lunch is
wild
for full days.
Yeah. Like he's already going Monday through Friday.
Oh,
yeah. He goes every day now. It's wild. He loves it. He loves the school, and I think that's why I love it.
He loves it because you exposed him early to it, too.
And he just learns so much, and it's a lot smaller, so it's been a lot easier. But yeah, I had him in that, which kind of helped break things up, and I also it helps with like just them socializing. Because I mean, he had like friends like we'd go and see and stuff, but I think it's just a different setting when it's like parents are away. It's just them with the teacher or whoever. And I feel like that's really helped too. So
yeah. And I just want to point this out. Alex is the sweetest. Like when you meet this kid, he's the sweetest, kindest soul. Like he's just the best human. Ty and I talk all the time. We're like, we just hope we get like a little Alex. Just sweet, loves his mom and dad. Just like a kind soul, listens, but is eager to learn. Just all of those things. I will say that's my biggest skill right now that I'm battling with. Now that Carson is so smart, and when he's around children, he just lights up. I've been very fortunate that my sitter has 3, like she's a kindergartner, a 1st grader, and then a 5th grader, and so all summer while she's been sitting, they've been coming over to our house and just like babysitting Carson. It's been so much fun. And now they're back in school and it's just Carson and the sitter again, which is really hard on my mama heart because he just loves being exposed to other children. We went to a birthday party this past weekend and he could just like keep up with these 2 and 3-year-olds, which is just wild. And I feel a lot of guilt about not disclosing him more. I don't know if it's like guilt with a sibling, but like you said, daycares are so impossible to get into right now. And especially, being an educator myself, like wanting to get him into a great daycare. And so we ended up touring daycares last November, and they were 2 years out from last November. So Carson's not going to get into the daycare that we're like pushing for until next September. So a year from when this is publishing, which is just wild. But I know that year will go by so fast, and at least then he'll just turn 2 and he'll be ready and excited. But until then, like you said, just exposing him to children as much as I can to get him started. Because that's when it was 2 that he first started that private daycare, right?
Yeah. So he was 2. I also have something else to say about the whole like how you have this guilt about him not having someone to play with all the time.
Yeah.
I know this is a weird. Well, we're dog moms. We were dog moms first, so dog moms will understand this.
Yes.
But whenever I got my first dog, after a couple years, I was like, he needs a friend. I think I'll get him a friend so they can play all the time and just have the best time. And I got another dog, and they get along great. But they are both like attention whores. Like they both need attention, and I just could not give them like both equally. They both want to be lap dogs. They want to be all over you. And so I ended up giving my border collie to my parents, which has been amazing. My dad, it's like his buddy. They walk 2 miles every day. Like they love each other. But it's been so great because they're both so happy now that they have like the attention they want. But it just goes to show you, like, sometimes adding, like, always having that, like, I want another puppy. Like, sometimes it's not the best, but sometimes just taking them to the dog park and, like, letting them play with other kids. Then they have the attention to themselves when you, like, all right, now let's go home. And it's like, oh, I get mom and dad to myself. Like, but I think that's another thing that kind of clicked. And I'm like, well, I had 2 dogs, and it was kind of hard to give them both attention. So maybe, it's not a weird analogy, but
that's good, Liz. I think, and I keep like kind of just going back, but same here. We had Deacon, who, if you guys follow me on Instagram, is our beagle, like king of the throne, mom's baby. And then we got Gavin, and Gavin is the ultimate second child syndrome. Like Deacon runs the show. If it were Deacon's choice, we would have never gotten Gavin. If it were Deacon's choice, we would have also never gotten Parson. Yeah. Because he's just, I love that analogy. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
All right. I love you. Thank you so much for being on.
Of course.
I want to just wrap this up by saying, you guys, obviously this is a platform. This is a podcast for only child mamas, for mamas of just one. And so I went ahead, and if you watched my first podcast, if you listened to my first podcast, I did mention my free community. If you haven't listened to my first podcast, make sure you go back and listen. I tell you all about my story, what shaped me in every season of life that led us to this one. But if you didn't hear it there, I'm going to reiterate it here. I am running a free community over on Facebook, just kind of a safe space in addition to this podcast for mothers of one. It is going to be in the show notes, so you can go ahead and click that and add yourself. And please, 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 as always, just share this podcast with another mama of one that you know, because this deserves to get out. This is something that doesn't exist, and I just want to make it a safe space, because if you're a mama of one, we've got your back. All right, guys, see you later. Elissa, thank you again. Love you.
Bye. Love you. Bye.